Live again. Live. Once again. This time I'm not doing anything edgy. Nothing weird going on here. Nothing strange. Run-of-the-mill shit. Maybe a little Bible study. Maybe that's exactly what you need. Maybe you don't realize it yet. Maybe. Maybe you're showing up here and it's like, thank God someone's gonna read this, because I sure as hell had no plans to do it. Go to the Bible in your house. Go find it. Blow the fucking dust off it. You can read along with me if you like. It'd be easy to do. Kind of waiting around for a little bit. I want to see if some people join. I used to have it set up all nice that on my OBS I had all the chats going. I could see exactly how many people are watching just looking at OBS. I fucked that up and don't know how to put it back. So now I got to click about 10 things to see who's here, who's watching. At the same time, I don't really give a shit. We got Gary Newman in the chat. What's up, dude? I do. A person who asked me to get donation alerts. And while I don't know if this is the right time or place to be playing fucking offensive notifications, I would love to hear it. But this is indeed a memorial stream. I lost someone close to me. There's been a lot of that lately. Jesus fucking Christ. But I don't feel particularly sad. That's not what I feel. That's not what I feel at all. He was one of my best friends. He was 86 years old when he died a few days ago. I've known him for a long time, and he was, dare I say, a saint. He didn't always live as a saint, but I believe he died a saint. He had put the carnal ways behind him. But there's one thing he always did like, and that was getting stoned, and growing weed, and sharing weed, and selling me weed for a long time. He was a great guy. First time I went over his house, he was like, here's some mushrooms that I grew. I was like 18 at the time, like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. But he also taught me the Bible. He taught me about the esoteric meanings of a lot of the mysteries of the Bible, how to kind of read prophecy. He's the guy that got me to read it cover to cover, and partially in an effort to prove him wrong. Not necessarily assuming he was wrong, but it's like, man, you're saying a lot of crazy stuff that I need to verify myself. And that's the best way to read it. Best way to read it is with skepticism, because if you read the Bible with skepticism, but you actually read the thing, you're not going to be skeptical much longer. That there's something truly beautiful in there happening, man, it's happening. This one goes out to you, Art. When I first met him, he referred to himself as Stealth Fighter. That you just couldn't knock him down. The government was trying to knock him down, people trying to knock him down, and you just couldn't do it. He is a felon who was arrested long ago for selling LSD. I believe it was the 70s. And he allegedly saved a cop's life while he was locked up from getting fucking shanked. And he ended up getting out on, like, good behavior, basically, because of that. A very interesting guy. A man that at about almost 80 years old got fucking thrown into jail for growing a tremendous amount of reefer. And not being shy about sharing that with the people in the community. Oh, good times. Then they think he's a little wacky. Yes, he might have been, but he was a man of God. They sent him to see, like, a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist becomes one of his good friends. And then I go over one day and she's there buying weed from him. And then, that the people would ask him, like, dude, you just spent all that time in jail. And now you're growing pot again? Have you lost your mind? No, I've lost my pot. I'm out of pot. That's what he would say. He was a great guy. He was a funny, funny man. Stream Elements link in the description. It should be there, my friend. It should be there. I just put it in there. Midwest Vikinger. up in here. It should be there. It should be easy to access. If not, we'll wait. We'll wait a little bit, because I don't know if I need that popping off right now anyway. So I want to share with you some of the stuff he taught me. And this was some of my favorite stuff at first. The book of Daniel and the prophecy therein was some of the most beautiful stuff I had ever read. And it's why I keep going back to the Bible today, partially. Many more reasons as well. I want to get through the first 3 chapters. We'll see how we do in that. It shouldn't take long. It's been a while. I haven't actually sat down and really read the Bible in probably years. I'll pull up a chapter I like, something this or that, and I'll read that. But I don't sit down and read it anymore. And I should. The book of Daniel. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. I'm not going to kill myself. Hey! We got a little bit of a donation happening here. That's badass. 420. And now I'm not going to kill myself because I can buy a sandwich today. Where were we? That's awesome. First one I've gotten. First time. Hey! I think I should crank up that Christian volume a little bit, maybe. Okay. Where was I? Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and he besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, and he carried them into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. Shinar is generally agreed to mean Sumeria. That is the area of the Anunnaki and that sort of thing. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring in certain of the children of Israel, even the seed royal, and of the nobles, youths in whom was no blemish, and well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and endued with knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability to stand in the king's palace, and that he should teach them the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. So this is the beginning of the captivity in Babylon of the Hebrew people. And the king appointed for them a daily portion of the king's dainties, and of the wine which he drank, and that they should be nourished 3 years, that at the end thereof they should stand before the king. Now among these were, of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the prince of the eunuchs gave names unto them. Unto Daniel he gave the name Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. I also want to note that I am reading a 1901 American Standard version of the Bible, which, when not doing specific studies, which I would use a King James for because I can go to my Bible concordance and I can go back to every word and see what they all meant in their original tongue. This was my friend Art's favorite study Bible, or reading Bible, I should say. This is I got a big study Bible of this one with a ton of information in it. It's very cool. I like Bibles. I kind of like collecting them. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the king's dainties, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now God made Daniel to find kindness and compassion in the sight of the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your food and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse looking than the youths that are of your own age? So would ye endanger my head with the king? Then said Daniel to the steward, whom the prince of the eunuchs had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the youths that eat of the king's dainties. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he's saying, give us, let us eat these greens and drink this water. We won't eat the meat. We won't drink the wine. And if you come back and we look like we're sickly and starving, then you can do something about it. And we're going through all of this as the setup to basically chapter 2. Chapter 2 is when it gets into basically hardcore prophecy. But this sets the tone. So he hearkened unto them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days their countenances appeared fairer, and they were fatter in flesh than all the youths that did eat of the king's dainties. So the steward took away their dainties, and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. Now as for these 4 youths, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. And at the end of the days which the king had appointed for bringing them in, the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in every matter of wisdom and understanding, concerning which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the 1st year of King Cyrus. Chapter 2. And in the 2nd year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, and his spirit was troubled, and his sleep went from him. So he's having dreams, they're basically nightmares. He finds himself terrified, and he's having trouble sleeping at night, is what's going on here. Plunet0 in the chat, what up, Maine? Hell World, we do be streaming a little bit. I forgot.
I'm not going to kill
Hey,
myself.
thank you very much. I forgot that Restream link was in the top of the lines there. Stealth Fighter donated a little bit. I appreciate that. That's cool stuff. Fantastic. Then the king commanded to call the magicians, and the enchanters, and the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans, to tell the king his dreams. So they came in and stood before the king. Oh, one other thing. And his sleep went from him. I always found that phrasing a little odd, not knowing what it means. I just said it was that he was losing sleep at night, which is probably true. But actually, the implication there is he wakes up from his nightmare and he can't remember the nightmare, but he knows how troubling it was. So he's calling all of these people into his court to tell him what his dream was. It's not even interpret the dream. It's what the hell what the hell happened? That's all it is. And he's like, you guys are the enchanters. You tell me. So they came in and stood before the king. And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in the Syrian language, O king, live forever. Tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, The thing is gone from me. If ye make not known unto me the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if you show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honor. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered the 2nd time and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said, I know of a certainty that ye would gain time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye make not known unto me the dream, there is but one law for you, for ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof. So he's like, you guys are fucking wizards. You're wizards. If you guys can't tell me what the hell, if you can't read my mind, you've been lying this whole time, man. You're claiming you're magic over here. And he's saying, now I'm gonna cut you up, dude. You're gonna get cut. The Chaldeans answered before the king and said, There is not a man upon the earth that can show the king's matter. For as much as no king, lord, or ruler hath asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or Chaldean. And it is a rare thing that the king requireth. And there is no other that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree went forth, and the wise men were to be slain, and they sought Daniel and his companions to be slain. Then Daniel returned answer with the counsel, and prudence to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, Wherefore is the decree so urgent from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. And Daniel went in and desired of the king that he would appoint him a time, and he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house, and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah his companions, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret, that Daniel and his companions should not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. So Daniel hears what's going on, and he goes to the guard, and he's like, why is this happening? Tells him. Daniel decides to go back to the king to tell him, give me this period of time and I will be able to do this. Then he goes to his friends and says, our Lord will do this for us. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a vision of the night. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So in a dream, Daniel received Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changeth the times and seasons. He removeth kings, and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that have understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. I thank thee and praise thee, O thou God of my fathers, who hast given me wisdom and might, and hast now made known unto me what we desired of thee. For thou hast made known unto us the king's matter. Therefore Daniel went in unto Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise men of Babylon. He went and said thus to him, Destroy not the wise men of Babylon, bring me in before the king, and I will show unto the king the interpretation. Then Arioch brought in Daniel before the king in haste, and said thus unto him, I have found a man of the children of the captivity of Judah, that will make known unto the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered before the king, and said, The secret which the king hath demanded can neither wise men, enchanters, magicians, nor soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and he hath made known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. Note, what in the latter days, what shall be in the latter days. So to me that's saying like the end times, the times to come and the end of times. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, which should come to pass hereafter. And he that revealeth secrets hath made known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have, more than any living, but to the intent that the interpretation may be known unto the king, and that thou mayest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This image, which was mighty, and whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the aspect thereof was terrible. As for this image, its head was of fine gold, its breast and its arms of silver, its belly and its thighs of brass, its legs of iron, its feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that stone which was cut without hands, which smote the image upon the feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them in pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken in pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. So they keep talking about an image. It makes... People usually use the imagery of a statue, because it has a head, chest, arm, legs, all of that going on. So what he saw was basically the statue of a man, and each layer of it was made of a different metal, seemingly symbolizing something. And then it gets smashed by... What does it say exactly? The stone that was cut without hands. Stone that was cut without hands. So a rock not made by man smashes the feet of the image, and then becomes a mountain that engulfs everything. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art king of kings, unto whom the God of heaven hath given the kingdom, the power, and the strength, and the glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens hath he given into thy hand, and hath made thee to rule over them all. Thou art the head of gold. So Nebuchadnezzar, and maybe perhaps his entire kingdom, is this golden head of the figure. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. So now we know that each of these metals represents a kingdom, and one will come after the other. And the implication is that they end eventually. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that crusheth all these, shall it break in pieces and crush. And whereas thou saw the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron doth not mingle with clay. And in the days of those kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, nor shall the sovereignty thereof be left to another people. But it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as thou sawest that a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. So there's a lot going on in there, all over that. So it goes the head of gold, which is Babylon, then the chest and arms of silver. So, and it says that it will be an inferior kingdom. Well, later on in the book of Daniel, Babylon is conquered by the Medo-Persians, as it was, which were two kingdoms that came together that took over Babylon. Now notice there's two of them. The arms, two arms. In the beginning, it was they say the Medians, I don't know how to say this stuff, but they were the ones at the forefront of that whole political thing. But over time, it was the Persians that rose up higher. They're the one, that's what we think of today, of that era. And then after that, the brass, it has the abdomen of brass. Let me go back. I don't want to get any of this wrong, so let's go over this a little bit. Third kingdom of brass. That is said to be the Greeks. Now, one thing I want you to notice about this progression is that you have, at the top is the most beauty. You have Babylon, which had many of the greatest wonders of the ancient world. It was a beautiful kingdom. But it wasn't known for being the most militarily powerful when we think of these great empires. And the Persians are thought of in a much more powerful light. But they weren't quite as beautiful. They didn't have quite the splendor that the Babylonians had. Maybe this sort of thing happens as empires expand and they get spread a little more thin. They don't have time for all the luxuries, perhaps. Then it goes to the Greeks, who are known for their power and the speed at which they took what they took. And they are a stronger kingdom, and it's got less luster as it goes on. After the Greeks comes Rome, who was all military. That was the military power that when we think of an ancient kingdom, we think of Rome, basically. So let's go back a little bit. So then after it gets to the iron, we get to Rome. There's a split in the legs. They say that represents the two sides of Rome after they converted to Christianity. You have like the Roman Catholic Empire, and you have Byzantium. And that is what the two legs are. So as we move past that, we get into like the feet that are part iron and part miry clay, part absolute bullshit. It still has some of the strength of the iron of Rome in it. And I think even Muslims in their prophecy today, they'll refer to America or just the Western world as Rome. That's very common, and it's very common in these ancient Middle Eastern religions to do so. So I think what we're looking at there is we're seeing like the world is controlled by America, which is that iron. It's that remnant of the iron. But it's just stacked up with bullshit that just has to fall apart. You have a ton of other competing powers, and they pretend to get along, but they don't actually. And that's what we're seeing today. And I think it's in the days of these kings. Now, I also remember, just as important as the 2 arms and 2 legs are, I think the 10 toes have equal importance. And I don't know where to put that at. I have no ideas for that one. But it's in the days of those kings, probably the toes, that the stone that was cut without human hands, this thing that was not made by man, that always lived, the Logos, the Word of God, Jesus, he comes and he smashes the figure into pieces, and it gets blown into the wind, and the mountain that is God's kingdom engulfs the whole earth. And you can see that a lot of ways. That's the resurrection, the second coming. But you could also see it as another age, like a golden age that's about to arrive, involving all of this prophecy and Jesus and all the good stuff. I love reading this stuff. For as much as thou sawest a stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. And I don't think we'll go this far into it, but one thing, it starts to identify in more detail a lot of these kingdoms, and it seems to go into Greece in a lot of detail. It uses references to animals. At one point it talks about a ram. It emphasizes the 2 horns, and it seems to associate that with being the Median and Persian Empire. And then it talks of a he-goat that comes with 1 great horn that comes and it kills the ram. And it seems to be Greece taking over the Persian Empire. And then it talks about this horn breaking off in its prime. And it seems to be a reference to Alexander the Great. And you can question a lot of things like when was this written exactly, how much of it is written after the fact, but I truly believe that this stuff was written well before what actually occurred. In the timeline of Daniel, in the book of Daniel, the Persians take over. So a lot of things about it have been proven true. Like a lot of things about Cyrus the Great or Nebuchadnezzar, these things have been proven true. There's things that haven't, like Darius is one character in the book of Daniel. We haven't proven that he's actually existed, but day after day, more of this stuff is proven true. Then the king, Nebuchadnezzar, fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, Of a truth, your God is the God of gods, and the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou hast been able to reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel great, and gave him many great gifts, and made him to rule over the whole province of Babylon, and to be the chief governor over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel requested of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel was in the gate of the king. Here we see the word gate. The Bab in Babylon or in Babel, that means gate. And we know the gates of Babylon, like, I don't know, we've seen images of them. They were beautiful structures. There's a lot of importance in the gate. It seems to me that it symbolizes, like, the veil between realities. Chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the satraps, the deputies, and the governors, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the satraps, I have no idea what that word means, the deputies and the governors, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the herald cried aloud, To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, the cornet? I don't know what that is. The cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, can't help but giggle sometimes, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worshippeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore at that time, when all the peoples heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the peoples, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And now here we see, after all of this with Daniel, after Nebuchadnezzar saying, like, you're right, your God is the God, he was the only one with any power, we find not long after, even after Daniel is given all of this, this command, he's still setting up a golden image of himself. Just as he was this head of gold, he couldn't stray away from that pride. He had to make himself God. And you have to wonder, like, did that influence him? Did the dream, like, is that just something he's thinking about? And who knows? Who knows, man? Where was I? Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near, and brought accusation against the Jews. They answered and said to Nebuchadnezzar the king, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree, that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoso falleth not down and worshippeth shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast appointed over the affairs of the province in Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image, which thou hast set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said unto them, Is it of purpose, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that ye serve not my God, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, am I saying that right? I hope I'm not making a sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thy hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake, and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated. And he commanded certain mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their hosen, their tunics, and their mantles, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and he spake, and said unto his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the aspect of the 4th is like a son of the gods. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace. He spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth out of the midst of the fire. And the satraps, and the deputies, and the counselors, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, that the fire had no power upon their bodies, nor was the hair of their heads singed, neither was their hosen changed, nor had the smell of fire passed on them. Here we have some Jews of the ancient days, prophets. Daniel was a prophet, a true believer in God. And when someone said they were going to throw you into the fire, this man had faith. And God found favor in these days with him. When they were thrown into that fire, they were 3 men. And it was not only astonishing that 3 men were walking in the midst of the fire unburnt, but there was a 4th man that was like a son of the gods in there with them. And if you read this and you don't think that's Jesus in there, talking about Jesus in the Old Testament, it is the most amazing thing. There is no argument on earth that this could have been added after the fact. After the Jesus story, no. The Son of God was in that furnace with them. And this is what you get if you have favor with God. I don't care what race you are. And the story of the Bible is constantly of the Jews coming to and falling away from their God, losing and gaining favor with him. But at this point, there are no chosen people. Like, you're with him or you're against him. And your only hope is to have favor with him. And I'll tell you this as well. Stealth fighter, Art, the man I lost recently, my friend at 86 years old. When he died, he was talking to me, and he had no fear. And he had no worries, and he was being so positive about everything. He would have been ready to meet his Lord at any time, and this is what a firm belief in God gives you. I know another man who is currently basically on life support, and it's a very sad situation. And people don't want to let go, and people are afraid to die, and they say, I don't want to die, do what you have to do to keep me alive. And then, what is it? It's months later. Months, and you got to be ready to go, because when your time comes, man. You don't want to be going through hell on this earth, especially not. You better find favor with God, because you're going somewhere after this. And if you think this is hell, you just wait, man. Just wait. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who hath sent his angel, and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and have yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god, except their own God. Therefore I make a decree, that every people, nation, and language which speak anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God that is able to deliver after this sort. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. I feel good about this stream. I think this is proper. Thank you, Cody, in the chat. Photon, Ruff Lamau, Gary, Hellworld. Thank you very much. I'm going to get off of here. Yakobees.com, everybody. Patreon.com/yakovalive. You want to come hang in the Discord. I'll talk to you soon.